Hello, Maria. Hello,
Hello.
Vanessa.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vanessa Archontidou. I'm a content manager of Iran Mac, and I would be the moderator of the next subject. Unfortunately, Mrs. Antoniadou has been sick, so the next subject will be moderated by me, and the name of the next subject is The Life on the Edge of Ice, powered by the North Face. So I'm welcoming both of you, Mr. Michael Styllas, Geologist, Mountaineer, the North Face Explorer Greece, and Miss Vanessa Archontidou. She's an Alpinist, founder of a Woman Can Be organ, and an EU Climate Pact ambassador, and a North Face ambassador as well. Am I right?
So, yes, you're very right. And it's my pleasure, I guess, for Vanessa is the same. It's our pleasure to be here. And thank you very much for the invitation. It's always a good opportunity to share our experiences from the cold world, from the cryosphere. So
we are
You're accusing us of bringing the cold to Greece most of the times.
Not me, but yes, you are somehow.
Yeah.
But we like the subject, and the thing that the life on the edge of ice is such a nice note. So we are very anxious to hearing from you. Mr. Styllas, the stage is yours. We are hearing everything you want to tell us.
Okay, so I just want to make a brief introduction that, as we said before, I'm a geologist and I'm a mountaineer. So for the last 4 years, I've been participating in a very interesting project as a scientist, as a geologist, that combines both my passion for mountaineering and my passion for science, because you know, under the eye of the climate change, our mountains change and our environment change a lot. We see that also in Greece. And for me to embark on this, I would say, like scientific odyssey with the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in a global project, made me really rethink about mountains and mountaineering and life on the edge of ice. That is the topic. So I'm gonna share my screen with you, and I'm gonna share my older and newer experiences from the cold world. Just let me know if you can see my screen. Yes. So life on the edge of ice. For me, it started at a very young age because I grew up in the city of Thessaloniki, northern Greece. And from a very, very young age, I was exposed to images like this. On a clear day, on a clear winter day, you can, from Thessaloniki, you can see Mount Olympus very clearly. And this really caught my attention from when I was in the elementary school. And also there was another factor that both my parents were very athletic people, so it didn't take long for me to get on the other side of the bay of Thermaikos Gulf and to be hiking on Mount Olympus from a very, very young age. So during my high school days, I was also a passionate basketball player because at that time, in the late 80s, Greece, it was the golden era of Greek basketball, and I don't think there were many kids in Greece that were not inspired by Nikos Gallis and the entire Greek national team, but also our basketball clubs in Thessaloniki. They were doing very well, and not only in Greece but in European Championship. But probably I was not very good enough with basketball, and I kept going. In high school, I started doing my own climbs with my brother on Mount Olympus. And I always remember my basketball coach would be mad at us because we may sprain our ankles and not be good to play the next game during the championship. So, but as I said before, probably I was not good enough with basketball, and I was so immersed in climbing, so I kept climbing more and more and more and more, and Mount Olympus became my home. And during my college years, I started doing climbs in the winter, and it was really my training ground for what was about to follow. Just to recap all these 20 years on Mount Olympus, a big help for me was the last 10 years. We developed a very solid collaboration with the North Face. And this gave me even more space to test my limits on alpinism, on skiing, and also doing my scientific research there. And just I can share with you a video of one of the projects I developed with the North Face just a few years ago on Mount Olympus before I embark on again on this global scientific odyssey. So I cannot see if the video is playing now. There it goes. Actually, that was the start. Then with North Face, I realized an expedition for skiing in Ladakh, in the Indian Himalaya, and several other projects involving some long distance running. But as I said again, Mount Olympus was always, and it still is, my really home mountain. My personal training ground. Yeah, so during this project, we tried to climb some remote routes on the north side of Mount Olympus, just to first to see if we could, but then my goal, and it still is, to look in the valleys between these steep sides of the mountain and offer some new potential for steep and extreme skiing. So the first part of the project, what you see now, was very successful. The second one is still pending, so I guess someday in the near future we'll be able to start skiing the most secret slopes of Mount Olympus, because maybe it's a touristic mountain, many people go, but there are still many places that are really untouched. Yes. No worries, nothing was wrong, everything was okay, no broken bones. So this is part of the lives on the mountain. Sometimes there are situations that you cannot control, and that makes it sometimes exciting, but that makes it sometimes not exciting at all. So after Olympus, I moved on to the Alps. So I still remember in my university years, the first climbs in Mont Blanc. It was an easy area to go from Greece to travel, and it still is, because the accessibility to the mountain is unique. You can take a telepheric, which is not a very good thing, but you can access alpinism and climbing routes relatively easy. And it's also a very important place for the development of alpinism. As I was gaining more experience in the Alps, then it was time to move on to the bigger mountains, and the bigger mountains are the Andes and the Himalayas. So it did take a while to arrive there. A few years of experience, let's say a few more lessons in the classroom of Mount Olympus and the European Alps. And there off I was to one day, about 18 years ago, I was lucky enough to be part of the first Greek national team to climb on the summit of Mount Everest. We're not the only Greeks, because Vanessa is here and she managed to do this very intense climb and difficult climb a few years after. But for me, this was a kind of, I would say, a landmark, or a very important point of my climbing career that made me also see things a little more different. So if we could play the second video, please. It's just a short edit from our expedition in 2004. Everest is a very famous mountain, of course. It's the highest mountain of planet Earth, but it's not only the climbing itself in these expeditions, especially in the greater ranges, to reach the summit or to try to reach the summit, because you mostly fail than succeed in these big mountains. There are so many factors that define the success or the failure, but it's really, it takes 2.5 months of your life exposed to dangerous situations like avalanches or other objective hazards. And the climbing itself is one part. The interaction with the local people, with the culture, with yourself is another equally important part. And of course, observing the environment, at least for me that I'm a scientist, is equally, as I say, 1/3 also equally important part. I will let you enjoy a little bit the video. It's not very long, and I will come back to Mount Everest because after 18 years, I came back last year for our scientific project, and I found that the area has changed a lot over this time. The cultural interaction is very unique in every place, not only in Nepal, because you are always confronted to different mentalities, different diet, different people, different philosophy about life. And it's really one of the things that we like in these expeditions is this cultural interaction. It's very, very different from our modern Western life. And this also really expands the mental horizons of, at least for me, it's been very informative to see how these people live or how their life changed in the last 20 years with the development of tourism. It's not only, as I said before, the climbing itself. This edit is by Pavlos Siados, that he made a movie about our expedition, and I think you can still find it free on the internet. And of course, the physical part, the physical and the mental part, they go together. And mountaineering and climbing is the one that can really define sometimes the success or failure, excluding the weather and the other situations that nobody can control on the mountains. So for our team, and I guess for Vanessa was the same, there was a long period of preparation with special training. Okay, always the best training for the mountain itself, but you have to develop for the high altitudes certain other skills and do some more specific training to withstand the lack of oxygen and the cold. And this was a short flashback for me in time for our Mount Everest expedition. But you know, we all know that life on the mountains is not always easy and it's not paved with a red carpet. Personally, I have injured myself a few times. In these high mountains, frostbite is a never omnipresent danger, especially if you don't pay attention to certain things. And when you're kind of when you're a little younger and a little more naive and you think that nothing can take you down, that's where the accidents happen. I had some other accidents on Mount Olympus. I had to sit in a wheelchair because I broke both my legs while rock climbing. But again, there were some close calls, I would say, but the most difficult thing for me was not my injuries, but overall this 25 years of mountaineering, but it was the loss of close friends. And every time that I would come back from a really high stress trip involving accident or death, I will go back to my secret place on my mountain. I will ditch the climbing. There was no desire to climb in the cliffs that I love and I grew up climbing, but I will turn back to my other hobby, let's say secret activity, that was a scientific research. So after one of these high stress trips in the Alps, there was the accident of another friend. I was not very stable emotionally, and then I thought to make a research and study the glaciers in the climate on Mount Olympus, because nobody had done it, and because it was the only way for me still being on the mountain without taking any risk. And this pattern repeated a few times. So 4 years ago, I got a call from a friend, and he told me, "Hey, Mike, check in the university in Lausanne, in the Polytechnique in Lausanne, the Technical Institute of Lausanne. They asked for an experienced mountaineer, a geologist, that to lead a series of expeditions around the world." So I did the post, I applied for the job, I got accepted. And the last 4 years, my life on the mountain changed a little bit. So the life on the edge of ice was, became a little, I moderated the risk, but they opened a new window for me to understand how we and how our invisible friends, the microbes, including viruses, because now it's everybody knows about viruses, they live in this harsh environment of the glaciers. So back to the academia, and I embarked for this, I embarked as the leader. So I had to organize and lead these expeditions with a small team of 4 scientists around the world. So the project is called Vanishing Glaciers Project, and it was really the epitome of my mountaineering and scientific passions. So what is this project is about? We try to learn what types and how many microbes live in the glacier, where seemingly there is no life, all over the world, and how these ecosystems will look because of climate change. We keep losing the glaciers. You don't have to be a scientist to realize that, but people that live in countries with glaciers, they see it every year, that big parts of ice are disappearing, and their life depends on this ice, on this water. But how these invisible ecosystems will look in the future, and what else can we learn from these small microscopic living organisms, which are the microbes, the most primitive form of life on Earth. So the project is global. We're almost done. I just came back from Chile, from Patagonia, and there is the last expedition in Alaska. All the other regions that you see in this map, we have already done successfully our expeditions. And for me, it's very interesting, because when I signed up for this task, I was again had these dreamy visions about mountains. This is a mountain in Ecuador that we worked under it, that we're gonna have time to go, to explore, to do our science, to collect samples. But it proved to be a little different, because these scientific expeditions, they involve very heavy logistics, and because we use very specific equipment and very expensive equipment to send out the cargo, to bring the samples in liquid nitrogen in deep frozen state. It's not as I expect in the beginning. I learned a lot during the process, and I have to say that these scientific expeditions, from the logistics point of view, are very, very challenging and more difficult than the climbing ones. So we have used many different means of transport during this expedition. Sometimes we have to fly in the glaciers. Sometimes we've used all the modes of transport available on this planet. Can we play also this video? There we go. So over the last 4 years, we traveled in the countries that we saw. I had the chance last year to go back to Nepal. Obviously, you see that in Greenland or in the Arctic, the glaciers are approached by the sea because they reach down to the sea. In New Zealand, it was obligatory, even though we didn't like it for ecological reasons, to use helicopters because the mountains are so far. And of course, the most popular out of our almost 200 glaciers that 155 we've sampled so far, we use horses and foot most of the time. And horses are very interesting. That was actually a day with a very good surprise. These Kyrgyz boys, these young boys in Kyrgyzstan, kind of saved us because we couldn't get all our equipment to the glacier. And what we do in these expeditions, what we were doing before, we set up our base camps. Usually, even though we work in the summer, either in the southern hemisphere or the north. Sometimes in the mountains, there are surprises. This is last year in Kyrgyzstan that we woke up in a summery day with 30, 40 centimeters of fresh snow. Then we approach the glaciers. We have to go as close to the glacier as possible. So we've seen many terminus snouts of the glacier so far, because that's where we collect our samples and do our experiments to see how bacteria live. And then we do microbiology. We collect samples. We measure certain quantities and certain qualities of from the water and from the sand, the sediment of the glacier rivers. We collect the samples, we store them properly. As I said before, logistics are very complicated, and everything has to be clean and everything has to be sterilized because we're talking about microbes. And just to give you an idea, what you see in this glacier river, that's in Caucasus, in Russia, this glacier, but in all the glaciers we worked so far, within 10 grams of sand, there are millions and millions of bacteria that we cannot see when we are there, but we see them after when we are in the lab. So this project has much more challenges than climbing Mount Everest itself for, let's say, for the glory or for the personal challenge. Of course, there are the same physical challenges, even though we don't summit any mountains, but there are mental challenges because we keep in the same team of 4. We've been traveling around the world, so we kind of know very well each other, and sometimes this gets tiring. And plus the fact that we repeat the same process of collecting the samples, the same protocols, we repeat them everywhere we go. Then the objective situations on the mountain. Sometimes we want to hike to this glacier, but the weather is so bad that to do all these delicate movements with our sampling, it's not always easy. So we need the good weather, and we have ended up working in very, very harsh conditions. I think during this project, because of the rain and we always work with water, I had more chances to get frostbite in my already frostbitten fingers than when just was going for climbing. And as I mentioned before, there are several logistical challenges, social challenges. Just an example is the language, or an example is that we went to work in Kyrgyzstan. We had obtained all the necessary permits, then the government changed, and then nothing was valid. So by the time we were there, we could do nothing. Political challenges, and the force majeure, which is Corona. Again, last year in Nepal, we got stranded, because by the time we finished with our work on the mountain, then the new variant came in, so they canceled all the flights. So we were just sitting there and waiting somebody to get us out of there. So this took a while, and that brings some extra fatigue. And then finally, after getting over all these difficulties, the samples are in our laboratory in Lausanne and in Luxembourg. And what we learned so far, you tell me you travel all over the world, and to do what? To learn what? Okay, these are a little bit of scientific plots, but we find the bacteria, we have discovered new species, we find what enzymes these bacteria are contain, and some of these enzymes may be of very, to the interest of the biotech. There are also some antibiotics and many other substances in this bacteria that nobody knew so far. So it's kind of a breakthrough science that is getting published a little bit. I don't really understand this plot because I'm a geologist, so I'm not gonna get more science. But one of the most exciting things that our microbial detectives in the lab, the rest of our scientific team, you can see that even in the microcosmos, that it happens what happens in our society. There is bacteria are struggling for survival in these harsh environments, and this is obvious from their chemical substances, from the chemistry and the enzymes. It's a chemical warfare, as we say. And as I mentioned before, this project has opened a big window, a global window to discover new antibiotics from these bacteria that live in these glaciers that will disappear in the future as the glaciers melt. Now for me, during part of this project, I always find some time to test and develop, at least to test, not to develop, but some new products that for the North Face that I get, and I have always time to do a little bit of trail running or a little bit of climbing to the side of the project. But the most important is combining science, research, and exploration, I would say. It's really opened my mind to see the mountains differently, to see not just as places that you go to conquer the summit, but to understand the life, the people, and the life of the invisible life that has to do with the microcosmos of the bacteria, of viruses, and all these microorganisms that we don't see, but they are very important for our life. So this is all for me, and thank you for your attention. And I will go back to Maria and to Vanessa.
Hello, Mike. It was very beautiful. Everything you said was very interesting. Vanessa, the stage is yours.
Well, I'm very excited to be on this panel to learn more scientific facts about ice from Mike, which I'm telling you, Maria, he's a mountaineering legend in Greece, but now I have the chance to listen to him also as a scientist. For me, Mike, congratulations, really.
Thanks, Vanessa. Thank you.
As for me, ice is an important part of my life and my goals. I'll tell you all about it. I'm not a scientist, but I'll give you a hint. I've just returned from the Earth's refrigerator, Antarctica. So believe me, I have seen tons of ice recently, and I have experienced a lot of cold during my latest venture to raise awareness about ice loss and climate change through a special initiative. But let me take this from the start. You see, I'm a marketeer, I'm a mother, a European Climate Pact ambassador, and an outdoor athlete, an alpinist that recently completed the 7 Summits project. My journeys for this project to ascend the highest peak of each of the 7 summits, of each of the 7 continents, started in 2014, but my climate journey, now that I think about it, began early in my life through a love of nature, meditation, and mountains. Actually, I think it's mountains that, and the love for mountains that led me to create campaigns and motivate people about climate change. Of course, when I started climbing at the age of 27, I knew very little about climate crisis, but my mountaineering passion, I would say, led me to some of the most ecologically vulnerable regions in the world. And although not many people have been in these places, there I began to see clear evidence of climate change, and actually I became very alarmed. Although, as Mike said, I'm not a scientist, it's evident in these places that things are changing. So sometimes people ask me, what exactly made you alarmed? How did you become alarmed? What was the trigger? And the truth is that it wasn't just one moment, but a combination of many. The images I was exposed to while climbing, such as receding ice on Mount Everest and the Alps, the damage caused by mining in Papua, where I went to climb Mount Carstens, the high temperatures in Alaska, in combination with something that is very important for me and stronger, I would say, the view of my own home devastated by wildfires this summer. All these images and emotions were the trigger, as well as evidence that the human footprint, ecological footprint, is gigantic. Now, having worked as a marketeer, a marketing director actually for many years, I realized that I could put my experience to a different use. And as these alarming facts kept worrying me, it made me understand that, at least for me, it is more important to sell ideas than products, especially ideas that make our world a better place. In Greek, however, we have a saying, and we say, permit me the Greek, ένας κούκος δεν φέρνει την άνοιξη. I'll translate in English. One swallow does not make a summer. It's actually the same. I'm afraid that being a sole marketeer, creating campaigns for environmental protection would make me look like a contemporary Don Quixote. But thank God, I was fortunate enough to meet people along the way that shared the same concerns and the same passion. As a result, A Woman Can Be organization was founded in the heart of the pandemic with a clear vision, with a mission and multiple goals. So our organization aspires to empower women through initiatives that address the global sustainable development goals and is focusing on climate action. Imagine women united for nature and sustainability. That is our dream. And this dream named actually our initiative, which started only 5 months ago. So Women for Nature is an activation with 4 important goals. First one is to raise awareness on environmental issues and climate change. The second one is to educate on environmental challenges and ways to contribute to their solution. The third one is to promote a sustainable way of living and foster love for nature. And the last one is to create networks, which means to connect with people, to connect with organizations around the world, to design and build a more sustainable future. So in January 2022, approximately just 1.5 months ago, a major project that responds to our first goal, raising awareness on climate change, was completed. The expedition to Antarctica, the continent that regulates the Earth's climate, was part of a communication campaign aiming to turn the spotlight on climate crisis. And that's why we have implemented this female ascent to the highest summit of Antarctica and skiing to the South Pole as, I would say, a communication vehicle, because we believe that outdoor sports, companies, athletes, female and male, not only female, can and should contribute to sustainability. So at this point, I would like to share with you a short video from the expedition so that you can have the opportunity to share a little bit of Antarctic cold. I don't know if we can see it.
Νομίζω ότι αυτό το όνειρο, αυτός ο στόχος ήταν για μένα η κινητήριος δύναμη των τελευταίων ετών. Η ζωή στη σκηνή. Και με βοήθησε να βρω την επόμενη κινητήριο δύναμη για μένα που προήλθε από όλα αυτά τα ταξίδια και είναι η προστασία του περιβάλλοντος. Γιατί γνωρίζοντας όλα αυτά τα μέρη, γνωρίζοντας πόσο άγρια, πόσο ευαίσθητα είναι, θέλω να μεταδώσω αυτό το μήνυμα. Πιστεύω ότι ο κόσμος πρέπει να το γνωρίσει. Η φύση είναι αδυσόπιτη. Είναι αδυσόπιτη γιατί πονάει, γιατί εμείς την πονάμε, η ανθρωπότητα, οι άνθρωποι. Δεν καταλαβαίνουμε πόσο εύκολα όλα αυτά τα οποία έχουμε μπορούν να χαθούν από τη μία μέρα στην άλλη. Δεν αφήνουμε τίποτα πίσω μας. Βαλάμε τις σακούλες με τα σκουπίδια μας. Είναι μια δέσμευση που έχουμε ενστερνιστεί όλοι όσοι έχουμε έρθει εδώ στην Ανταρκτική. Να μην αφήσουμε τίποτα πίσω. Να μείνει η φύση αμόλυντη και ωραία. South Pole. Τα καταφέραμε! Καλώς ήρθατε στην Ανταρκτική!
So you've seen the video. I hope you are not very cold. You see how connected I am with ice. But I just wanted to share with you the video to understand that communication and raising awareness about ice loss and climate change is a huge mountain to scale. New research suggests that as climate change nudges global temperatures even higher, the Earth's ice is melting faster today than in the mid-90s. And annually, the melt rate is now about 57% faster than it was three decades ago. And of course, there are conclusive studies about these facts. Scientists are warning us, but it's also another thing. The global atmospheric temperature has risen about 1.1 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times. But in the Arctic and the Antarctic, the warming rate has been more than twice the global average in the last 30 years. The polar regions and the mountains are suffering. This is what these numbers are showing. But I just want to ask you, what do you think the question is, the question that I keep answering every time I present this data to non-scientists, to my friends, to my colleagues, in general, to my community in Greece? I will ask you, Maria, what do you think their question is?
Are you cold?
No, actually, this is their question to me, but
okay.
The question for the climate is more alarming. They say,
how much time do we have left?
Yes, and
I think that's the question we're all thinking about.
And another thing is, why do I care? Because when you say that we have left like 30 years, okay, 30 years, 50 years, 60 years, who cares? I'm not going to be alive. My children are going to face this. No, maybe not. I don't know. We can manage. So why do I care? That's the question. And it's not only a question to me, but a question people are asking themselves. Why should we care about the ice that is lost and that is going to happen in the future? The ice, they say, is far away. It does not concern me what is happening on the mountains. I will never go up there. Only you and Mike are going up there. And I simply don't understand the use of ice. That's what people say. Well, why do we need ice? And well, the situation and the importance of ice is clear for people living at the Himalayan region, for example, because they depend on mountain glaciers for drinking water, or even for regions relying on winter sea ice to protect coastal homes from storms. For our region, for Greece, however, the world's ice melt is not always clear. How it will affect us in the near future, not in 30 years. And that's why we do nothing. And we don't even discuss about it. But I'll tell you something. The melting of land ice on Antarctica, Greenland, and mountain glaciers added enough water to the ocean during the 3-decade time period to raise the average global sea level by 3.5 centimeters. However, now, ice loss is beginning to accelerate. Across the Arctic, sea ice is shrinking to new summertime lows, and at the Antarctic, huge ice shelves are detached from the continent. I don't know if you read in the news 5 days ago, an ice shelf the size of Rome or Rhodes Island, for us Greeks to understand. An ice shelf that big was detached from East Antarctica. So my point is that rising sea levels is not a science fiction movie scenario anymore. And we Greeks have a country with beautiful islands, a country depending on tourism, a country that faces exceptional climatic events the last few years, because what happens on the mountains does not stay on the mountains. That is why we care. The ecosystems are linked, and the changes are not calculated by the distances, but by the gravity of the phenomena. So no matter how far the problem is, it is certain that it will hit us. Now, you're probably wondering, why am I telling you all this information? We are not in an environmental event, but in a sports management event, am I right? Well, the reason is because athletes and sports companies can contribute to protecting ice. As I have told you in the beginning of this talk, I'm a mountaineer, but also a marketeer. And the question of how outdoor sports community, our community, can tackle the intangibility of this climate crisis has concerned me for a lot of years. I firmly believe that mountaineering and outdoor sports help people to connect with the natural world. So people experiencing the natural environment, and especially outdoor athletes, can better understand the severity of the situation and can help others to understand it. But it's not only the outdoor athletes that are concerned, it's all athletes. A survey conducted in light of the COP26, the United Nations Climate Summit in Glasgow, to gauge the attitudes and level the concern that elite track level athletes have about global warming, found that nearly 80% of sports athletes are seriously concerned about climate crisis, and more than half say that climate change has already impacted them. So athletes are acting on those concerns. And 82% said that they have already made changes to their lifestyles to reduce the damage they and their activities cause to the environment. Another 78% said they actively encourage others to adopt lifestyle changes that are more environmental friendly. So changing ourselves and encouraging others to change is the epitome, I would say, of sports culture and a way to contribute to sustainability. Athletes are role models and can choose to stand up for what they believe. They can choose to stand up with the scientists. They can add their voices to those saying that we will not stand by and accept the damage that is happening to our planet. But in this battle, athletes and companies go hand in hand. I'm very proud to say that since I'm a North Face ambassador, that the North Face is one of the companies concerned about the planet and is committed to reducing its carbon footprint. From the solar installation at the facilities to the energy saving practices in the textile mills, they are constantly looking for ways to reduce the impact. And they don't do it because it's the right thing to do. As the company states, addressing climate change is not only good for the planet, it's also good for the business.
It's good for everyone, and we have to think about it.
For every sport.
For everyone, yes.
So the North Face athletes, myself included, travel to some of the most remote places on the planet. We have seen firsthand the effects of climate change. Glaciers are receding and permafrost is melting. The winter ski season is changing dramatically. And once in a lifetime events such as storms, fires, and floods are occurring much more often. So all these phenomena show that we have to be alarmed. And sustainability is a one-way street. And even if we're not completely ready, and by we, I mean the athletes, the companies, at least the commitment to reduce our impact to the places we explore is a big step forward.
Vanessa, I'm sorry, we have to close because we have like less than 3 minutes for 5 questions. You're already coming. Thank you.
Seconds. So, I'm pleased to see that our sports community are setting ambitious goals on sustainability and climate neutrality. As for me, on a personal level and partly organizational level, my expeditions become and will become an opportunity to showcase the impact that climate change has had on the fragile mountain ecosystems and polar region. My aim is now to bring these images of endangered ecosystems back to our world, to our people, to our community, and try to explain what is going to happen if we don't act. So once people see, experience, and appreciate something, they have more incentive to actually protect it. And this is what I want to do. I want to explain, to become a climate storyteller, narrating stories about nature, because people need stories to become engaged. Stories about our planet and about life at the edge of ice. That is the theme of our discussion, and it's very essential for our existence.
We have less than 1 minute for questions. Sorry for cutting you, Vanessa. We have less than 1 minute for questions. We ate all the time. We consumed it. It was very interesting, and thank you. So I'm gonna say the questions really bit. The first question is coming from Konstantinos Anastasopoulos. The question is, what are your thoughts about orienteering and the potential of growth in Greece? That question was for you, Mike. And I'm saying the second question so we can go faster. How can someone living in Greece that have a love for mountains begin doing what you are doing? So you have like 20 seconds each, less than seconds. Go.
Should I go first, Vanessa?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. Go.
As far as I know, orienteering, there were some very organized events, but not to a large extent as is mountaineering. And I don't even know if there is a federation. And for somebody to start walking in the mountains, in the sense of doing mountaineering, there are several alpine clubs, there are several even companies now that they can help people to take their first steps into the world of mountaineering. And then mountaineering is not like other sports. You can take it as much as you want, and then you can go back and be good with what you did in any day on the mountains. The goal is to be out, to understand yourself, and to understand that this is a very fragile and environment that we all depend on, one way or the other.
I think Mike has covered everything that I wanted to say. Go out, don't be afraid. It's easy. Start with a hike and then move even higher. There are many people out there to help and guide you. So it's just the will.
I'm very happy to say that they gave us another 1 minute.
Wow.
So yes, we have another less than 1 minute, but we have it. So about the question of someone living in Greece that have a love for mountains, Vanessa, you said just go for a hike and you'll find others walking as well, hiking. Mike, you say the same?
Yes.
Just go for a hike and let's meet in the mountains, right?
Yeah, if you make a brief, let's say, survey out of the 100 people that climbed Mount Everest last year, and ask them how they started, I guess a small percentage will be like me, maybe because of a brother, of a sister, of a parent, and the rest, they just went for a hike, and then they saw the potential, they saw the beauty, they saw some things that you don't see, for example, when you're in a closed stadium, and then one thing brings the other. So yeah, there is no roof on the world of mountaineering, and sometimes it gets too much, but there's really no limits.
Okay.
And most people say that maybe it's dangerous, but really, if you take it one step at a time, living with nature is not dangerous. You have to be cautious, but it's something that brings more life into you. When you go to the mountains, you feel alive. That's how I feel, and that's how most people say that they feel when they go on their first summit. Either it's in Itos, which is in Athens, and it's 1,400 meters mountains, or even if it's more bigger mountains, higher mountains, it doesn't matter. You feel alive once you're on the summit.
I want to thank both of you. I don't want to say anything to spoil every wonderful thing we've just heard. So let's meet in the mountains. And thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invitation.